Hey guys, welcome to Acroasis Duodecum, also known as video 12. This video is going to cover chapter 4 in the Wheelock textbook that you know and love so dearly, and you can find the information I'm going to talk about on pages 33 and 34. Today what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the present tense conjugation of sum, which you have yet to see. We're going to talk about the predicate nominative, which flows pretty nicely from that discussion of the present tense conjugation of sum, and as you've hopefully recognized by now, I am neither Miss Hatmaker nor Mr. Edwards. My name is Mr. McGinnis. I'm also a Latin teacher. I teach Latin 2 and 4, and I'm here today to bring you the present tense conjugation of sum.
Customization!
Genius!
He's tenderizing the ground!
Of course!
Write that down, write that down!
So, recognitio. Okay, what do you know at this point in your life about Latin verbs? Well, I'm pretty certain that you've covered the following. First of all, in chapter 1, you learned how to conjugate, which is a strange word, right? It makes me think of prison. You learned how to conjugate first conjugation verbs. A conjugation is a group of verbs which shares common rules of formation. Right? There are boatloads of verbs in Latin, but you put them all in a conjugation. They all have the same endings within that conjugation. That's pretty nice, right? You learned in the first chapter how to do that. Okay, conjugating means inflecting, right? Changing the form so that you can change the meaning of a verb. So you need to find the present stem. The present stem, as you may remember, and if you don't remember, look back at the video. The present stem is the second principal part of the verb, right? Also called the infinitive. The second principal part of the verb minus the letters re. So if your verb was laudo, laudare, you take off the re and you have lauda. Lauda, L-A-U-D-A. And then to that present stem you add the personal endings. Okay, the personal endings, again, things that you should know and love and be comfortable with. O or M for the first singular, S for the second singular, T for the third singular, mus, tis, and T for those same ones in the plural. So again, a quick recap here. We have laudo, I praise, I do praise, I am praising. After the first singular, you start using your stem, L-A-U-D-A, which you see in blue on the screen, and then attached to the end, you see your personal endings, right? And those personal endings change as we change the person and number in English. So laudo, I praise, I do praise, I am praising. Laudas, you praise, do praise, are praising. Laudat, he does. Laudamus, laudatis, laudat. Right? And again, that's all review. You've seen this very same thing. You can find this very same example in your textbook in chapter 1. So what about sum? What's the deal with sum? Principal parts are sum, esse, fui, futurus, aum, and it is an irregular verb. Okay, every verb that you've covered so far, every verb you've learned, first conjugation or second conjugation, has been a regular verb. Right? Now, it's easy to say that irregular makes it strange and psychotic and weird and confusing and frightening. I don't think that necessarily has to be true. What does it mean to be an irregular verb in Latin? Okay, well, it's pretty standard, right? If you were to ask me, say, what separates regular from irregular verbs? Irregular verbs don't fit nicely into a conjugation. The reason for that is because there's no consistent stem, right? With the verb sum, like all other irregular verbs that you'll learn in your life, there is no consistent stem. As we said on the last screen, with something like laudo, laudare, you go to the second principal part and you remove the re. With sum, second principal part's esse, right? There's no re there. I can't do that. And on top of that, laudare, that stem ends in an a, right? If you had a second conjugation verb, the stem would end in an e, like moneo, monere. If I went to esse and took off the se, it would end in es, right? That's weird. That's not like anything I've ever seen before. So there are some weird things to sum. It's awkward, right? But you're in high school. Awkwardness is what you do. What's nice about it is that we're going to use the same personal endings, right? So those personal endings that we just saw on laudo, laudas, laudat, laudamus, laudatus, laudant, those are going to be the same personal endings for sum. We're still going to have first singular through third plural. We're still going to do all the same tenses, right? Everything that you've learned about verbs still holds true. It's just the forms are going to look a little weird. In addition to that, you learned about the infinitive, right? The infinitive of a first conjugation verb, second conjugation verb, any verb is the second principal part, right? The present tense active voice infinitive. It translates to blank. Sum, it's the same thing, right? Its present tense active voice infinitive is the second principal part. So esse means to be, and that's your infinitive. What about the forms? Since it's irregular, the forms and translations of sum in the present tense must be memorized. Okay, there's no other choice. You have to memorize these things. First singular. First singular is sum, right? The first principal part of every verb is always the first singular. And you'll notice on the screen, I've highlighted in blue the personal ending, right? When you first learn the personal endings, the first singular was O or M, right? There is an alternate choice, and here we're using the alternate. So sum, I am. Sum, I am. S, in the second singular, you are. And already, right, two forms, you've got a different stem. We start with an SU stem, and we move to an E stem. Weird, right? But we still have that ending. Remember, O or M, ST, so sum, S, and it ends in an S. Sum, I am, S, you are. Third singular, another new stem, right? We have ES as the stem now, and then we add the ending T. So say it with me. Sum, I am, S, you are, est, he, she, or it is, or there is. Okay, and you'll talk more in class about the there is translation. Sum, es, est. First plural. Sumus. For whatever reason, right, we've again gone back to that SU stem. So don't trust the stem. What you've learned is to trust stems, use stems, believe in them. With sum, we can't do that. That's what makes it an irregular verb, is that we cannot follow a consistent stem. But again, those endings are the same as what we know from Laudo. So sum, es, est. Sumus, we are. Estis, you plural, or y'all are. And then finally sunt. They are, or there are. Sum, es, est. Sumus, estis, sunt. We see a bunch of different stems, right? I see SU used 3 times. I see E used once. I see ES used twice. It's just odd, right? I would love to have a consistent stem, but that's the nature of being an irregular verb. So again, sum, es, est, sumus, estis, sunt. Commit that to memory. That's super important. Unrelated side note slide, because who doesn't love an unrelated side note? Why is the verb irregular? Right? Why are things irregular in language? Well, it's pretty straightforward, right? The verbs that are irregular in Latin are the ones that people use the most, right? It's like contractions in English. Every time you have a contraction, it's because it's 2 words that very often get said together, and it's easier to shove them together, okay? This is the same thing. You're going to use sum so much. It is the most common verb, right? The verb to be is the most common verb in any language. And so because of that, it's going to be the most irregular verb probably in any language because it gets used so darn often. Comparison is like a pair of running shoes, right? When you first get a pair of running shoes, they're bright and crisp and clean, and then you start running. Okay, and every time you run with them, they get beaten down a little bit, and they end up being smelly, disgusting messes that you toss in the back of your parents' car. Right? Well, that's like sum. It's the smelly, disgusting mess in the back of your parents' car. Quick comparison here, right? Don't believe me? Look at French. Je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes. I don't know French, right, as you may be able to tell. But as you go through that, you can look and see how similar a lot of those forms are, right? Look at the second singular. It's the same. Look at the third singular. It's the same. Look at the rest of them, right? In the plural, a lot of the same stuff. A couple vowels are different, right? Oh, look, they changed the O to the U. That's just the French being difficult. If you look at Spanish, same idea, right? Some of you guys might know Spanish. These forms of sum shouldn't be particularly frightening to you, right? You see somos and you can't connect that to sumus, we have an issue. Okay, so realize that just like in those modern languages, the verb to be is irregular, and just like in English, the verb to be is irregular, it's going to be irregular in Latin too. So, let's have some fun. Hey, it bounced. Fun with sum, right? What do we need to know about sum? First of all, sum is intransitive. Okay, a long, scary word, this intransitive. But it's not a big deal. That's a fancy word meaning it can't have a direct object. Okay, a verb like laudo, which means to praise, can have a direct object, so we would call that transitive. Sum cannot have a direct object, so it's intransitive. Fancy. Why can't it have a direct object? Well, because it doesn't express any action, right? How does that happen? Well, it's a linking verb, right? What does being a linking verb mean? Linking verb is a fancy name meaning it expresses no action. It expresses a state of being and links the subject to something in the predicate. So let's backtrack for a sec. Why can't it have a direct object? Well, because of what I just said, right? If it doesn't express action, it can't have a direct object. What is a direct object? The direct object is the noun which receives the action of the verb. If a verb has no action, it can't have a direct object, right? I can praise a teacher, but if I just say I am a teacher, I'm not receiving any action, right? As opposed to receiving the praise, right? Heap the praise upon me. Fine with that, but I am a teacher is a very different thing. So, more bouncing. This leads us to the most important construction one needs to be comfortable with the verb to be, something called the predicate nominative. As a linking verb, some links, see what I did there? Some links its subject to a noun or adjective in the predicate. Okay, so you have I am a teacher. I'm linking up I and teacher. Linking, link. It can't introduce a direct object, as we've already covered, right? So we want something to come after it, and what's going to come after it is the predicate nominative. I like to think of it as an equal sign, right? You got to have something on each side. You're not going to have some metaphysical, deep, philosophical statement where you just say, I am, right? He is. Great. Right? He is what? You got to go further. That's a stupid sentence if you don't have something on the other side of the linking verb. That other something, predicate nominative. Example. Well, in English we call that the subject complement. So, an example. Mr. McGinnis, right here, is a good guy. Fact. Okay, if you look at your screen, Mr. McGinnis is the subject. The verb is, we know, third singular, right? It would be est, because you remember your forms? Sum, est, sumus, estis, sunt. Mr. McGinnis is, and then, again, that's your stupid metaphysical sentence, right? Mr. McGinnis is. That's a fact, but it's not a good sentence. Mr. McGinnis is a good guy, right? A good guy is the predicate nominative. It would be nominative, just like Mr. McGinnis is nominative. An example in Latin. Magister, which is nominative singular, that's your subject, and that means teacher. Est, which we just learned, again, sum, est, sumus, estis, sunt. Mr. McGinnis is a bonus vir, a good dude, right? A good man, a good hero even, depending on who you ask. So we see what's happening here, right? You have a nominative subject. You think about that linking verb as an equal sign. That linking verb is going to connect you to the predicate. Whatever's in the predicate is your predicate nominative. Now, if what's in the predicate is not a noun, you would just call it a predicate adjective, right? But it's the same thing. So instead of just saying Mr. McGinnis is a good man, what if I just said Mr. McGinnis is good? Well, that's an adjective, not a noun. So you'd call it a predicate adjective. But it's 6 in one, half dozen in the other. That's it, friends. Drop the mic. You're going to have a Google form. I'd like you to fill that Google form out and allow me to be the first to say this has been a delight. And hopefully I'll see you guys again. Enjoy the video.